studies she did, she identified that like every 1,000 words within therapy sessions, 30 of them are metaphorical. And however, the practitioners were using about twice as many metaphorical words as the whānau that they were seeing. So we've adapted this for our work. So important thing to start with, you're listening to figurative language. You're listening for metaphor or symbolic language. Now, I don't mean pounce on the first word that pops up. You know, listen for themes or repeated themes. So I was blown away by what my sister said. I can't live through these constant storms. How can I be expected to stand up against tāwhiri mātia? So these things are giving a theme. And then we can move on, we can reflect, or we can rephrase, or we can elaborate on those central themes. So this is for me, I'd say I can hear you're struggling to make headway with your sister with these gale winds. Tāwhiri mātia is certainly a powerful opponent. And then what we want to do is we want to invite whānau to explore these as an image. So we want to make a stronger connection to this thing that is still a concept out there. So we might invite them to step back and explore that. So what is it like being in a storm? What does that look like? What does tāwhiri mātia look like? So you want to delve into the meaning and bring the meaning to life a little bit more. And then we want to explore that with our senses. So moving from just the head, which for some people is a safe-ish kind of distance from our emotions. And we might want to say, so what does it feel like to be living in a storm? What do you notice in your body? You know, you're puku, do you feel overwhelmed, pushed, numb, shaky? So you want to explore the felt sense. So, and then we move on, so similar to how when we introduce metaphor, we want to explore and extend. So we want to look at the kupu, the context, the whakapapa of concepts and characters, roles that are within that whakataukī, or that metaphorical language that's being used in session. So in the scenario, in the kōrero that I responded to in this snippet of therapy, I could go into the pūrākau around tāwhiri mātia and tāne and their conflict over the separation of their parents, which reflects the siblings issue, but also her mentioning of tāwhiri mātia. We can look at how being distressed is and how that feels. And you look at tāwhiri mātia ripped out his eyes and threw them up into the sky, creating ngāwhitu, creating the beautiful things that guide us at night time. But we can also look how Te Mātoenga, God of humanity, defeated him. We may focus more on the weather side of things, and we can look at being sheltered from storm, you know, reading the weather, being more prepared. So there's lots of guts here for you to get into in order to explore. And then we want to invite the extension of that metaphor, because we're still talking symbolically, to their current concerns, you know, strengths, preferred narrative. So the person I'm seeing is kind of going, so I'm fighting with my sister, we disagree about our parents, but we also have other people that can help us, similar to tāwhiri mātia, similar to all the brothers in the previous story. And then we move on to co-creating. This is where we're building something. So we reflect on the learnings and we identify actions, you know, so we're starting to talk more about, so how can I move forward with the understanding that I've created through that wānanga. So when I'm upset, I can't think straight. So similar to tāwhiri mātia, I need to develop a strategy like Te Mātoenga to withstand that storm, like reading my own body and being prepared. You know, I can learn techniques to calm my breathing, to whakatau, or to settle my body and thoughts. And I can also speak with whānau to support me through this process. So that wānanga is coming back to actions, and it's going from something quite figurative into something quite literal, into actions. And then we're co-creating. Within therapy, we often talk about coping statements or self-soothing statements, but if you listen back to Hera's kōrero, she's talking about knowledge being transmitted, and often whakataukī were statements that were said at times of special events, or we're related to particular stories or pūrākau over time. So you can create a learning from your session. So for this one, so tāwhiri mātia blows on the outside. I control tāwhiri mātia inside me. So that taking away is, no matter what's happening around me, I can control my breathing, I can tow my body. So all of that process was building upon their own language, their own metaphorical meaning, and it opened it out and it brought it back in to something that can be held and used again for her own well-being. And her children and grandchildren might be saying this in generations of time. All right. So that's the kōrero from me.
From us, he meant.
From us. So Hera is really happy to answer any of the questions that you have, and only really the difficult ones.
Especially the ones about therapy.
Yes, yes. And I'll translate any deal that you want.
Hey, tēnā korua. Thank you for sharing your mātauranga with our whānau today. We haven't received any questions. I think you have said it all for our whānau. However, how are our whānau able to access this kōrero or get you guys in for pānanga? How is that all done through you, both you two?
So, Pato Kaitira Trace. So we co-facilitate Hepuna Whakata, which is what you would have saw with Dre and the green cards. And if that is something that you're interested in, you can just get at me, sarah.kinred@tarawater.com, and we can have a kōrero and I can put you in the where to go and what's up with that. Come on.
If anyone has any particular questions about therapy, send me an email. And then send me another email, and then 3 weeks later send me another one. But I will get to it, but it's just like that reminder is really helpful. Or contact Hera and she'll make me answer.
Yeah,
Oh, tēnā tātou. We just have one question. Are your slides available for our whānau?
The slides, no. But this kōrero is going to go up on the Te Reo Māori website. So you can access the kōrero via the website once it goes up.
Kia ora whānau. Here we have one more. Are there books that I can read to particularly apply whakataukī?
Patai mai anō?
Are there any books that they can read to practically apply whakataukī? Aroha mai.
The application is there are a lot of books around whakataukī and whakatauaki. There are a lot of things in order to understand the background and the development and the connection and the importance and value of whakataukī. But if you're thinking more about how you can apply metaphorical language and metaphors, there's a range of really good examples around acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT therapy. So there are books on the utilisation and therapy to provide some safe distance from topics. However, Fiona Matheson in New Zealand has provided several journal articles around the use of metaphorical language, but if you want an easy way of getting them, her PhD is online. So you just Google Fiona Matheson Metaphors PhD, and she summarised at the back of her PhD, a range of different ways of responding to metaphorical language. And it's really, really helpful to guide you. And if you're Māori and you're working with whānau, then you use that lens to interpret that information and apply.
And there are many a book out there around whakataukī, whakatauaki. Ngā Pepeha Ngā Tupuna is a really good book. And it gives examples, it gives where it's come from, it gives examples of how to use it. But I think when we talk about Te Ao Māori, it's all about being able to wānanga that. So it's about actually being able to get together with your peers and decipher what that is, not just rely on the English translation. So just go in and have a kōrero with your mates. What do you think this is? How do you think that you could apply this? How o whakaaro? And then together you grow in that space, and together you can start to unpack what puputai is. For example, having a look at Māori dictionaries, having a look at other kōrero. It's not as easy, I suppose, as just reading it on a piece of paper and going for it. Even for me now, I have to wānanga Te Reo with my reo buddies to make sure that my thinking is on point and that actually fits the kaupapa and what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and I think it's the same thing as tai ao when we talk about, okay, so I know this whakataukī mentions a tōtara. I know what a tōtara is. Really? So it's not just knowing it's a tree, but what is a value of tōtara within Te Reo Māori? Yeah, and as a carver, I know there are particular shapes and styles and things that I can represent because tōtara is a beautiful wood to carve and is very forgiving, whereas other woods are not so much. So there's certain value within tōtara around intergenerational transmission of knowledge that way.
Yeah.
So you've got to look beyond the translation, and it's a beautiful thing to start exploring different elements of tai ao and different elements of mātauranga Māori as well, not just the kupu themselves.
Yeah. Research, do some rangaho.
Aye.
We just have another pātai. What are some really rapid metaphors they can use?
Rapid metaphors. Well, there are short metaphors that you can use, but you can't give a metaphor and try and wrap a kaupapa around the metaphor. The metaphor has to align with the kaupapa. You can literally Google metaphors used within therapy. There's a really nice summary of them, but you want to
fall out.
Yes, you want to broaden your knowledge base so you can apply them to what the person is presenting with. So there are metaphors. There are quite deep metaphors within acceptance and commitment therapy when we're talking with people who have unhealthy thinking styles or critical voices, and we talk about driving a bus. So you are the driver in the bus, you are alert, you are aware of the direction you're going, but the passengers in the bus might be someone that's quite critical, someone that's angry, someone who takes offense easy. And the importance is you want to get to know your passengers. You can't fight with yourself. You can't fight with your passengers because the bus will crash. And you can't go and get drunk and wasted because then the bus is going to crash. So it's a metaphor in explaining how we have to understand when our passengers came on board our bus. So as a child, there's certain things we saw and we experienced as to why we think the way we think. So there's lots of metaphors like that that can be simple, but the metaphor itself grows through the application of the therapist. But it's the same with the whai kōrero. When I'm listening to the use of a whakataukī and whai kōrero, the speaker adapts it for the context, and it's the most beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Tēnā tātou. We have a lot of comments and mihi to you both. That's all our pātai from our whānau today, whānau. Have you got any last words to share?
Nice jacket, like really nice jacket, like it really does stand out.
Yeah, I'm really glad you didn't wear a hoodie.
Yeah, I know, jam.
I suppose just mihi kaua tuana kia koutou katoa, ko tai mai nei te whai wā, te whakarongo atu ki i nei te koru nei, e whakapāho ana, e kōrero ana, kia koutou e tēnei o ngā rangi.
And the thing for me is, mātauranga Māori is not just an exclamation point for your mahi. It should be the centre when you're working with Māori, but you can't use it as a thing. You have to get involved with it yourself. You have to engage. So I really challenge you to get out there and extend your knowledge, and it will pop out at the right times if you enrich yourself. So kia kaha.
Yeah, tika tāna. Kia kaha tātou. Get out there and mahi with our whānau. Kia whai oranga tātou katoa.
Ai.
Ka pai.
Ai, tēnā no tā korua. Me kara kia whakamutunga. E te mangainga ne hera pono e te tukuturi tapu. Whakaungia mai mātou ki roti tō koutou aroha noa. Pahere te anō mātou ki te rangi Māori e ngā wā katoa. Ko te maanga hei tautoko mai. Ai nei ake nei. Āmene. Mauri ora e te iwi.
Mauri ora.
Mauri ora.
Tēnā tātou.